Hello everyone, welcome to this tarot reading. My name is Eva, and today I am doing a reading about what we as white Americans need to understand about the racial tensions happening, especially right now after the death of George Floyd. Everyone is welcome here, and the comments will be open. However, I'm going to screen them all first to make sure that the conversations that spring up are constructive. I'm not trying to censor opposing views, except in the case where they are dismissive or inciting any kind of harm or furthering the problem. I'll be asking for guidance from the divine, and I understand we all have a different idea of what that is. I honor your perspectives and I ask you to honor mine. Every tarot reading comes through the lens of the reader, and I don't deny that I have my own specific lens, but I am going to be looking to understand more, just as I'm asking everyone else to try to understand more. I don't have anywhere near all the answers. This subject and many other subjects are things I'm exploring, and I believe tarot has proven itself to me and others to be an extraordinary tool to help explore our thoughts, our feelings, and many of our subconscious unknown beliefs and values that need to come to the surface so that we can all become better people and live in a better society. I am excited for anyone to join me, and really do welcome you here. So let's get on with this. I have with me the Tarot of Little Secrets. It's a deck I haven't actually used that much, but every time I sit down to do a reading, I let my intuition guide me to the deck that feels the most correct. And I looked at two others before I settled on this one. So even though I'm not super familiar with it, that might be a good thing. I might keep my mind a little more open to what comes through than a deck I know really well. It has a lot of, I think, hopeful, healing, positive energy coming from it, and it also is rather diverse, which I think could be useful in a reading like this. So I'm just going to take a moment to kind of get into the prayerful mindset I like to bring to every reading. What I'm going to do is lay out two cards first that show us kind of the crux of the rest of the reading. It kind of shows what are we dealing with. That's great. Okay, I'm going to break it and take two cards. And there's an extra one here. We'll come back to this in a few minutes. The crux of our problem, as we know it now. 6 of Swords. You can see the 6 swords there in the boat. 2 women. One rowing, one sitting with their things under a full moon over these waters. We have wavier waters here than we have over here. Crossed with, okay, not surprising to see the Emperor come up. This deck uses Arabic numbers for its major arcana in one corner and Arabic numbers in the opposite corner, or I should say the right corner there for the minors, just to make that clear, because most decks don't do that. Wow, look at that. Okay, lots of messages coming through already. Let's see what this one is. I believe this is the Page of Swords. Again, like I said, this deck is sort of new to me, and this uses a symbol here for each of the courts. Let's see what we've got. Book. Yeah. Yes, that's the Page of Swords. Ooh, so she's holding her sword. She's standing in her It looks like a field with butterflies. This is the messenger card. This is the eager student. This is the investigator. This is where we are. This is often I get court cards that come up to show us how we are entering this reading, what mindset we're in. That's what I've been noticing more and more in my readings. And I'd say that's very good. That's very clear that we are coming into this reading with the youth, with the attitude of a young person needing to know more, a young person who is very curious and feels like they don't know all they need to know. That's what I hope we're coming in here with. The butterflies are very significant in terms of regeneration and the idea that we all go through a process of dying to what we were as caterpillars, crawling into a chrysalis in which we're not doing anything except changing and growing. It's like a time out to learn all we can or change into something new, and then we emerge as butterflies. I think that's a really beautiful energy to come into this reading with. This deck is called Tarot of Little Secrets because it does have little, at least one in every card, a little embedded image of sorts that you can kind of draw more out from. This one has, let me show it higher. You can see that. It has a little face down here, and I have to take a closer look at that. And there's something, I think it's just, you see that one too. We have a person with the body of a dog. That is the oddest thing, but the book will tell us more about that. And the little secret is that the wise dog knows its own bed. That is a very odd image to come up in this reading. Oh, goodness. And I'm not going to overlook when ethnic diversity appears in the cards, because I think that was part of the reason this deck came forward to my intuition to work with. And again, I don't remember what all the cards look like at all. But I have to point out, we have a white man here, older white man, in the position of a dog, and he's looking at this young person of color, I think it's a woman. That could be significant. Unfortunately, this is a tension we are definitely living in. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's and apologies to the artist and creator here. I'm sure she never intended. Well, I can't know, but she is not on the hook for any of my interpretations. She did a beautiful work here, in my opinion. So that's great. We know what this is about, more or less. Now let's come to this. Again, we have people of color, 2 women. And a Six of Swords is you can interpret it a number of ways, of course, like any tarot card. But you have movement from one reality, usually wherever the Five of Swords had you, something very painful. Like the Five of Swords, the card before the Six of Swords, is one of the most painful energies in the deck. It's very contentious. It's about it can be about actual conflict, actual weaponized conflict. It can be about I don't want to say sneakiness, but just underhandedness. Okay, an underhanded battle in which nobody comes out the winner. That's the energy of the Five of Swords. It's a really difficult energy to navigate and come out of. The Six of Swords is the escape from that. It's the new beginning. It's the moving on to better, calmer waters. And look at the full moon and the stars are out. It's full illumination. You have learned something from the Five of Swords and you are moving to better things. I think this is what we all want. Those of us, anyway, who can tolerate the idea of a society that doesn't look like what it used to look like and that has people that look different from us in it. We have to really consider, too, the idea of immigration, the idea of what does it mean to us And what does it mean if we ourselves are the children of immigrants here in America? If we as white people had our ancestors immigrate to America, and very few of us are not in that, really all of us, every single one of us, at one time had an ancestor come by boat or plane to our country. And now we have people with a different skin color coming to our country. Are we going to decide that they are lesser than us and their children are lesser than our children just based on the color of their skin, or is it more than that? Let's think about what more it might be, because I think that's probably where more of the problem lies. It's not the color of the skin, it's what all that represents to us. It's the different belief systems, the different cultures, the different preferences for food and dance and everything. What do we think about the idea of sharing this country with people with very different cultural ideas? Okay. The Emperor card speaks to it says a lot in the name, okay? So you have the Emperor, the idea of empire, the idea of one person ruling an empire. He sits on his throne, he's secure, and he's ruling his land. This gentleman happens to be a white gentleman with his white hair and his light skin. And we in America, I'm talking to us white folks, this is probably what we think of when we think of empires and we think of rulers, because our history lessons went so far as to take us back, through European history, and we didn't learn a whole lot beyond that. We didn't learn a lot about the Mongols, the Chinese, the South Americans of all varieties, and the Africans of all varieties. We limited most of our history to this story. And we're being challenged now by a different future. And what does it mean to live in this world and have a lot of power in this world? What is our responsibility? What kind of empire do we believe in? Not necessarily what our ego might want. Safety, normalcy, everything easy, comfortable, the same, although that can be boring if you ask me. But I am no different in feeling somewhat squeezed at times by the idea of the white heritage, being erased. I'm admitting what I think is one of the root causes to our problem is we're afraid to lose power. We're afraid to be erased. We're afraid to share our resources, and we're afraid of what change looks like. I mean, there's so much power in the Emperor, and he can use it for good or bad. This card sometimes turns people off, especially women who've been hurt by men. They really have a hard time with this idea and this energy, the energy of a rulership, especially a male ruler, or masculine style of rulership, which is sort of aggressive and direct and wants to structure everything and order everything and rationalize everything and doesn't allow for a lot of collaboration and that sort of thing and listening. This kind of rulership has created a lot of shadow around the world, colonization and so forth. But that doesn't mean we just shut our ears and say, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear all that. There's a whole lot of conversations to be had about that, and they're not all one way. They're not all one way. There isn't just one bad guy here. I think a lot of good has been done in the Western world. I think a lot of good has been done for mankind in the Western world. But the flip side of that coin is something we have to look at, and we often don't want to look at that flip side, which is the ways in which, our advancements have many times come about by suppressing and plundering other people. And yes, other nationalities have a history of plunder as well. That is a touchy subject I don't hear many people talking about. And I have a lot to learn about that, so I don't pretend to be any kind of expert, but I think it's only fair to say mankind, people, throughout history, and anywhere in the globe, have a violent history. They have a history of not getting along with their neighbors, of taking what's not theirs, of, raping and pillaging. It doesn't all fall on this white person here. But we're looking at this today. So let's go on. So now I'm going to draw cards to kind of expand on these ideas and give us more insight. What more do we need to know about these very difficult and prickly and very complicated, multifaceted, and very emotional topics? What more do we as white Americans who identify as white in America need to know and understand? What is the bigger divine picture for this tension we're in? Okay. Oops. Oops. I have a funny way of doing the cards. I'm still, Okay, wow. Okay. Okay. Let me take a moment here. Okay, I'm just going to start. I've got a few ideas. I'll talk for a bit, then I'm going to meditate and see what else comes through. So, this is the Four of Swords. This is the Knight of Wands. This is the Five of Pentacles, also known as the Five of Coins, the Five of Discs. This is the Empress. She's our only major arcana out here today. So, that's interesting. Okay, just, wow, perfect. We have the Emperor and the Empress. They are the two rulers. Okay, I'm sure some tarot readers are getting ideas too. And Four of Coins again. I'm gonna call it Pentacles, just because I feel like that's a little more open to interpretation. Basically, the Pentacles represent Earth. They represent our physical world. That includes money. It includes all our stuff. It includes our houses, our bodies, everything we try to secure, everything we work for, is tangible. And there's two of those cards here, and then we have a Swords card and a Wands card. Okay, wow. So these two cards, we even have a picture of Mary and Jesus in this. Okay, wow. These two cards, I'm kind of feeling as two sides to how people want to address this issue. You have a man in the traditional tarot. He's basically a knight, come back from battle, and he's taking a retreat. He's resting. Here he's in a church or something like that. He's just come back from a difficult time with the Three of Swords, something very painful, very difficult to process, and he's taking this time out. He almost seems to be praying. You can definitely get the idea that he's praying to his higher power to, in this case, a very strong representation in the child and the mother, whether you think of them as Mary and Jesus or something else. Although, of course, the halos obviously indicate that. But you can think of this just as any mother with her child. This is a very benign energy of peace and the vulnerable. And we pray to the most vulnerable if we're Christian. We recognize how much power there is in the vulnerable state of Jesus Christ. As he came as an infant. That's one of the strongest messages in the Christian canon, is that Christ came as an infant to show us God's willingness to be vulnerable, to be humble. And Mary is very important to Catholics and many other people too around the world for her representation of divine motherhood, of sacrifice. They're both symbols of sacrifice. And devotion to others, not themselves. Well, that's sacrifice, of course, but devotion to peace and love and what's best for others. And this man who's been through something really hard in the Three of Swords, he is resting to try to come up with a new way forward, a new way of thinking. The ace, a single sword here, represents a new way of thinking, a new idea, cutting through whatever is in the way of what you value, what you need. It's crisp clarity. And he is resting to receive crisp clarity. And I think we all, well, that's the point. Not everybody wants to look at it that way. Some people are more like this Knight of Wands here. Another beautiful energy on its own that is about charging in impetuously often, with passion and courage to do what's needed. And I think we have very different energies here, and both are fine in and of themselves. There's not a wrong and a right here. And I think it's okay that different people want different things and handle it differently. We shouldn't judge each other for the way we handle this, as long as we're doing no harm to others. And so the downside of this can be that, you act recklessly, that you maybe charge in too fast before you have all the information, that you maybe speak your feelings and your passion too fast and not considering other people and their feelings. We have to be careful, especially as white folks, to not try and tell people of color what their story is, what their feelings are. That's extremely important. We have a person of color here, though, and it makes sense they would be fired up right now, that they would want to take action. It also makes sense that as what kind of looks like a white person here doesn't feel as comfortable taking action, doesn't feel as ready, and feels like they need to pray about this. They need to silence themselves. They need to think and rest on it. And we shouldn't feel that, I've heard that white silence is violence. But sometimes whites know that if they open their mouth, they're going to do violence with their words, right? They need time to regroup, maybe. And they need to be able to say, I made a mistake. They need to be able to find that humility again, time out. I probably opened my mouth and said things I shouldn't. It's perfectly fine to go back with a new truth and in humility and say, okay, I'm ready to learn. She's also holding the Ace of Swords, that truth. Now, down here, it's very interesting. We have the Five of Pentacles and the Four of Pentacles, and in between we have the Empress. And in many ways, I see her as grounding this entire reading. She is the counterpart, the feminine counterpart to the Emperor. And she is, she's pregnant in this deck, not every time. She is an equal ruler with him. But her way of handling things is different. It's a different type of rulership. And yes, this is a female figure here, but the Empress doesn't just mean women. It's a type of existence. It's a creative and life-giving, hopeful, progressing for the future. It's extremely positive. It's extremely generous and patient. She is fully grounded in the real world, but she is also very compassionate, very wise, very smart. I see both these figures as the like all four queens of the tarot, all four suits are here, and all four kings are here. They have all that is required for good leadership, for the best leadership. They are not lacking in anything. But they don't always make the right choices, right? They can. They can. It's kind of hard to explain major arcana to anyone not familiar with tarot, but it's basically cosmic, influences or like archetypes, bigger than individual people, bigger than societies, bigger than presidents or kings. It's an energy, it's an archetype. And we have this beautiful combination here. But I think some people would agree with me that this has dominated our history and that this is key to our future. We have to, as a society, understand the importance of what the feminine perspective brings to our world. We have to make women equal. We have to love the female perspective as much as we love the male perspective. In all ways, they need to be equals. Not the same, but equally respected and having an equal voice and having equal opportunities. And of course, that doesn't have anything to do with, gender spectrum and binary, non-binary. That's a different conversation. This is archetypes. This is all things are on the spectrum, but there's a lot that can be learned by studying the archetypes. And she is growing something new. She is fruitful. She is ushering in the next generation, okay? That's what we have to be thinking about. What is the next generation? It's diverse. We're not going to ever see it become undiversified, okay? But we are feeling lots of restrictive energy here. The five, again, like I was talking about the Five of Swords, the Five of Pentacles is like the bottom of the Pentacle suit. It's a painful place to be. You are feeling, typically the folks in the Five of Pentacles are in rags and they're injured. At least one is injured. They are shoeless. They are destitute. There's usually a church in the background. They are not in a church. Maybe they don't feel safe going in the church. Or maybe they've chosen not to be part of the church. Or maybe they should be. They could find, sustenance. But for whatever reason, there's lots of reasons, they are outside and they are teamed up together to try and support each other. There is so much packed into just this one card for us. First of all, I want to point out, these are looking like white folks to me. And we're living in a time when, what we saw in the 2016 election involved destitute or marginalized white folks trying to be heard. And I think that's valid. I think they have a reason to be heard too. And I think they have reasons to be angry. I think they can feel left behind. I think that's hard for some people to acknowledge, but it's an important part of the conversation, an important part of our change, that we listen to their stories as well. That they are included at this table. People working in coal mines, people on food stamps, people with intergenerational alcoholism. There's all kinds of ways. People whose steel mills left and they couldn't bounce back. I mean, there's no end to the ways in which our society is struggling. There are many ills, and all the races feel some kind of ill, okay? All genders feel some kind of ill here in our society. We have to let everyone's voice contribute to how we rebuild society. Everyone's voice matters, okay? We have to remember that. I think there might have been something else about this card coming through. The religious folks, they feel squeezed out and marginalized. I was one of them. I was in church for 25 years. But we don't all agree on everything. But if we don't respect a certain group, okay, if we don't respect, to not respect them is to not respect them, okay, and vice versa. And I feel like that's what's happening a lot here. This group doesn't want to respect that group. You know, who's the dog in the corner? You know, the older white male. Are all older white males bad? They're not. Are all older white males this person? Or responsible for the misdeeds of this person? No, but they have benefited for a long, long time. Not equally. You know, older white men have disabilities. They can be blind. They can be deaf. You know, we have to remember. They can be short of stature and picked on. There's all kinds of ways people suffer in this society. We can't just look at, you're that person. Oh, so you don't know any suffering. All right, I want to talk about this card. Whew. So I've been actually having this card come up in my personal readings lately, and it has to do with, for me, being afraid of losing your resources, or having a scarcity mindset. Okay, thinking like, if I just follow my budget and I do everything right, I'll be safe. Of course, at the time I'm making this video, we're still living in the era of the coronavirus, and things are not as seriously locked down as they are, but I believe it will continue to be an issue, and we will continue to feel some worries about jobs, finances, all of the things we worry about anyway will be amplified. And this is a problem right now. If we're all feeling stretched, if we're all feeling worried, that's going to amplify the fieriness of the debate, and the impatience with it, and the fear. It's just going to amplify the fear for everyone. So we have to really be on our guard about that, but we also have to work on this energy. This idea of scarcity is huge. It's huge. It's this idea of what happens when people unlike us live among us. And, you know, the idea of resources. You know, how did America become so great? We have beautiful natural resources in this country. Well, was it our country? You know, who says it's our country? You know, who says it's the white man's country? It's a series of history. It's resources don't belong to any one group of people. That's the divine energy here. The divine energy wants us to look past what we think of as ours. Our right to this, our right to this, our right to that. It's so hard to get out of this. I think this is one of the hardest things for white people to accept about themselves, is that everything's fine with other people living here as long as I don't lose anything in the bargain. Or, you know, there's plenty for everyone. But if we feel like there's not going to be plenty for everyone, you know, which is I think a lot how these folks felt, especially white, poor Americans losing their jobs to immigrants coming in, they don't want to share, you know. That's what these are things we're trying to understand. I'm not saying I have the answers, and I know I've been proposing things I think, but you'll come to your own conclusions, of course. And I'm just showing you what I'm seeing, the topics that are coming to the surface, okay? So many topics here. Now I'm going to meditate and see what Spirit might show me. And I'll probably pull an oracle card. See what happens with that. I'll have to see. Okay, I'm back for meditation. So I did see some things. The first thing was butterflies, which made me think of this card. So I think it's a good reminder that it's a process of change for all of us. And to be patient with ourselves and each other. There is a lot of healing that we might need to do for ourselves. Why are we so afraid? You know, what's going on with our own inner fears and our own feelings of, you know, why do we want to exclude some people from the conversation, for instance? So yeah, butterflies to remind us that we can come out better than we went into that chrysalis, okay? We can fly in full color if we're patient and get through the chrysalis time. This is a chrysalis here. Let's see. Second thing was a king on a chessboard. I actually just saw a flash of like that little hat or whatever you see on a chess piece, and it made me think of this card. But the chessboard idea was interesting because a chessboard we think of as two opposing teams, and one trying to win. Everyone else gets slaughtered, basically, right? It's all or nothing. It's win or lose. It's competitive, and I think we can move away from thinking about everything in our society as winners and losers. And also, the chessboard has typically a black and white intermingled. I swear I didn't make this up. This actually came to me in my meditation time. But it's a kind of a very poignant symbol of what we could have here in America, which is an equalization between whites and blacks, like a chessboard. And the difference to not having it be winners and losers and aggressors and sufferers is here in the energy of the female yin. Let's just call it yin. The yin and the yang here. You need a balance between yin and yang for a healthy society, and we have not had that in America, maybe forever. I don't even think you could say, it didn't come here with all the other good ideas maybe that came here, or the other good things that came out of the Congress passing the, deciding to be a country. There was a lot of smart things that built our democracy, but there was also some inherent problems that we tend to overlook. And one of those problems is, what's the role of women? Coming out of European society, women did not have much of a voice or many rights, and we are still needing to heal and change that dynamic, and if we're going to see a healing of the wider dynamic. I mean, half of our population is represented in females, if not more. You have to see that as an underpinning for this other problem. That's my opinion. The other things I saw, okay, this one I was less this might have just been for me. It was a pile of stones standing up, like you sometimes see in advertisements for, well-being products. And it's sort of a Zen symbol, I think. I actually tried to look it up, but I didn't get very far. I could say it may have just been for me. It is often equated with meditation, I guess. And it also, there's the idea of the cairns, which are trail markers. And this time in history is a trail marker for us. We need to try to get on the right path. We need to understand what a milestone this has been and not bypass it, not ignore it. It's important. Two more things came through. This one was crossed feathers, and they were crossed, and it made me think of the Two of Swords in tarot, which is indecision, and it's like stalemate. And again, you get that sense of opposition, but they're feathers. They're not swords. In fact, swords might imply war, but feathers imply the quill, the pen, and the pen being mightier than the sword, in my opinion. Being able to do more through what we say and write than going to war with each other. Like, let's solve this with dialogue and, our written, and let's read each other's stories. Let's read the stories of people of color, and let's read the stories of people suffering, even though they're white. Okay, let's pay attention and see us all as citizens of this land. Okay, the final one was a dome over on a part of the globe. And I don't read science fiction. I don't watch movies. I didn't watch whatever that movie was about the dome. So that was a very odd thing to come into my mind. Extremely odd, and it kind of made me laugh. So I was like, okay, that's probably enough. I've gone far enough here. Seriously, though, it made me think of how, in many ways, what white America is trying to do is put a dome over itself. And of course, in the era of coronavirus, we've sort of had to. We've had to slow down the flights, but I feel that some people want it that way all the time. And so what would it look like to have one country with a dome over it? Is that really the best we can do to protect ourselves from outsiders, from the other? Is that what we want deep down? I get it. It's good to take pride in your heritage. That goes for every single person on the planet, to take some pride in where you come from, at least understand where you come from. But there's a big problem in America because that was robbed. That right to know your ancestors and know where you come from was robbed from a segment of our population at the hands of our ancestors. Maybe not yours directly. Mine didn't come over here until the 1800s and 1900s. They didn't import slaves. Okay, I get that. I get many people want to make that argument. But we are a collective that has to look at the collective deeds, and we have to acknowledge that we can take pride in our ancestry, but Black fellow citizens struggle with that. Do we pray for them? Do we pray for their sorrows? Do we pray for their grief? Do we shoulder any of their burdens? It's such a tightrope to walk. I get that. But we can't just ignore it, or, there's not going to be any dome over our country. I think that's fear. And I think decisions made of fear are almost always the wrong decision. That's something I've learned in my life. And very many things that we make decisions about are fear-based. We as whites really have to look at our fears. Okay, I'm going to pull some oracle cards. Oracle cards are not tarot. They don't usually follow a system. So tarot usually follows the same system from deck to deck to deck. There are decks that kind of make up their own, and there are a couple different tarot systems that all have their roots in the 15th century, I think it is. Italian, the earliest decks that are known, I think they're 15th century Italian decks. And then out of those, those were not used for divination. They were not used in this way. They were used more as a game, as far as we know. And I think it might have been the 16th century or the 1600s, 16th or 17th century when they first started being used in divination. But an oracle deck is kind of like, they're all unique, and they speak to a variety of they try to cover a gamut within the deck, but each deck might have a focus. This one is a beautifully balanced deck, I think. It's called Oracle of Echoes. Beautiful. What do we need to know to add further insight and clarity to this reading? That one wants to pop out. Maybe I should take that one. Yeah, I think I'll take that one. And one more. Or however many cuts I get. Okay. Now, let's look at those. Ooh, sorrow and discord, yeah. Yeah, I think this sums up the white response here pretty well. Some of us mostly feel sorrow, and the rest of us mostly feel discord, participate in discord. It's kind of like, where do you want to fall on this spectrum here? And what's beneath it? I'm going to pull a few more cards. The Amenti Oracle. I will list these decks down below in the description below this video too. So this deck is based on the ancient Egyptian teachings of their goddess Maat. And it's all about virtue and justice and how to live life with a light heart, how to die with a light heart. A heart as light as a feather, so that when you're weighed up in the afterlife, you can proceed to your heavenly reward, or whatever you want to call it. Having a heart as light as a feather. This is important for us to really understand where we're stuck and how we can behave in a way that gets us unstuck and closer to justice and peace. Hope you can see. I'm trying not to cut off screen. Yeah, I don't know where the screen is. I'll just do here. Okay, well, I'm feeling this one, but I'm not sure I'll take the others. Yeah, I'm going to take this one too. Wow. I benefit with gratitude. I converse with awareness. I create harmony. I think they say a lot themselves right here. This speaks to me of this feeling here, of feeling like I'm down and out. This can be unlocked by focusing on all the great things we have in our lives and how little we really need to be happy, and how much we can share, and how sharing is like gratitude. It's the same energy. It's the same energy of giving and generosity. We have benefited in this society. Are we grateful? And what do we do with that gratitude? I converse with awareness is so important. We have to become more aware if we're going to be talking. Why should we be saying anything or writing anything if we haven't done our homework? What can we really say that benefits the conversation when we are only talking from our own narrow experience? This is too serious. There are lives being lost. This is a war of sorts, you know? We have to be more aware. We can't be ignorant. We have to be educated. We have to read stories from others. Excuse me. Okay, I had to leave for a moment because my kids were making noise and they needed me. I was talking about this card. I think I said basically all I really needed to say. I'll move on to this one. I create harmony. Okay. Harmony. Okay, I've been learning about that word a little bit lately because someone had sent me something and it was pointing out how in the Greek myth about Aphrodite, who's also known as Venus in the Roman stories of her, the card in tarot that represents that archetype is the Empress. And I mean, that's actually her astrological sign associated with this card, Venus. And so she has an illicit love affair with the god Ares, who is represented in tarot by, you guessed it, the Emperor. And so she's married to Hephaestus, and I don't know about Ares, but they have a love affair, and Hephaestus catches them in a net, basically this, was it invisible or golden, I'm forgetting. And all the gods of Olympus come and see them together, and they're caught, basically. They're caught in the act. But out of that pairing of the intensely female with the intensely masculine energies, and again, forgive me for using terms that might be triggering to folks, non-binary folks. It's not my intention, and we can talk about that another day. Out of that was born Harmonia, goddess Harmonia. And so I think, again, there is a way forward for us to create harmony. But I think, it comes back to understanding this imbalance that's even deeper than the racial imbalance. It's the imbalance between male and female. men, women, but also within men there are female energies and they're out of balance. And with women, in women, there are male and female energies and they're out of balance. So both have both. Each has both, and they are out of balance in each. And we are all walking around needing to balance this out more, come to understand these things. And out of that, I believe, when we are in balance, when we can both, be the aggressor and be the listener, be the talker and the listener, be the doer and the person who, how to explain this, retreats from doing. All her doing is so much about the womb. It's about, she's not actively creating a human being. She's trusting the divine for that human being. She's trusting in higher forces to make this life. And I think too often we get no trust in the divine. We get, I want everything to be just the way I want it, and I'm not going to listen to anyone else. That's not going to create harmony. We have to be listening as well as talking. We have to be retreating as well as, doing. And the idea of taking dominion has gone on a long, long time in history. It's time to balance that out with more growing and nurturing and making do with what we have right at our feet and enjoying what we have and making it beautiful, rather than always going after the next thing and taking the next, mountain and scavenging it for materials, all those types of things. We need less of that and more nurturing what we have right in our own society, right in our own neighborhoods, creating harmony. I'm going to do one more deck. This is called Power of Surrender. The author of this is Judith Orloff, MD. She's a practicing, I think she is an MD, but she practices as a psychiatrist or psychotherapist or something like that. At least she used to. I'm not sure if she's still in practice. She's an empath who writes about healing from various societal woundings, various personal, various woundings that have happened on a personal level, and being more aware of your empathic nature, which is that's the feminine, being, intuitive rather than just using your mind. It's using your intuition for things. What you have us see in these cards this time. Wow. It's surrender to miracles. Dolphins jumping through the water. We all want things to be beautiful around us, don't we? We all want to live in a world that is peaceful and harmonious, and our children can play and we can go swim with the dolphins. But who doesn't feel that way? There are people in this country who don't feel safe wherever they go. They can't be free like this. They're always aware of what they look like to others. Be open to miracles occurring in your life. Feel and know that these events are real. Let go of any resistance and banish any doubt that miracles can happen. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much if you've stayed this long, and this is an act of trust on my part, and an act of service, and an act of hope that every one of us can make some small contribution to this conversation and to making our world better for everyone. making our country better for everyone at this time. Tell me what you might be doing or are doing to contribute to harmony, to peace and justice. Or tell me what you need more of, what you need to know, what you're confused about, what you don't understand yet. And if you'd want me to do more readings like this, I'll consider it. But this covered a lot. So I thank you again, and I wish you all the best. Stay well and stay in your power without taking the power away from anyone else.